Welcome back to my Money Honey series. We are doing our third video today, and if you have not watched the other two videos, I would ask you to pause here and watch them. I'm going to put the links to them in the description bar down below, and this video is also part of a playlist that you can watch your way through. We did an introduction video where we talked about what this series is going to be, what you're going to learn from working your way through this series with me, and also the different stages that we're going to go through as we follow the path of our personal finance journey, and what that is going to look like if you choose to follow along with me. So take a moment to watch those videos. In our last video, we got together everything we needed to know about our income, and that is going to be our income for the coming month. Whatever month it is right now that you are watching this video, we are going to focus on building a budget for next month. So if you've watched last week's video and gotten everything together there, you know exactly how much money is going to be coming in for next month. So you've got the income side of the equation, and today we're going to be talking about expenses, or the outflow side. If you are bringing in more income than you are paying money out in expenses, then you are probably generally doing well. If you have more expenses than income, then we are either going to have to find a way to increase income or decrease expenses. And the first step, the easiest thing, is usually finding a way to tweak your expenses. And the first step to tweaking your expenses, or understanding how you're doing, is to know what your expenses are. And that is what we are going to do today. There are two types of expenses we are going to be talking about. And the first are your fixed expenses. Fixed expenses are those things that you pay for, usually on a monthly basis, but they might be weekly or bi-weekly or annually, something like that, where you have to pay them every month and the amount is generally set. So they tend to be pretty inflexible. Fixed expenses are things like your housing expenses, so your rent, your mortgage, your property taxes if you pay them monthly or biannually or annually, your condo fees if you have those. They are also things that maybe vary a bit month to month, but are usually fairly consistent, like your hydro, your water bill, your gas bill. If you have a car payment that comes out monthly or bi-weekly, that is also a fixed expense. Perhaps some things like a gym membership, things that you have made a commitment to pay on an ongoing basis that are pretty inflexible. These also include things like your cable bill, your cell phone bill, your internet bill, all of those things you know you're going to have to pay every month. So what we are going to do in this lesson is understand what our expenses are going to be for next month. So the first place we're going to start is with those fixed expenses. So some of these things you may know off the top of your head. Generally, people know what their mortgage is, what their rent is. Some of those are pretty easy and are going to stay the same month to month. I will warn you, in the same way that if you are paid bi-weekly, you are going to have some months where you are getting more paychecks. If you pay your mortgage bi-weekly, which some people do because it means you have more payments in the year and get your mortgage paid off faster, it also means you need to understand exactly how many payments are going to be coming out for that bill, for that mortgage bill in the coming month. So I am going to put a list in the description box down below of all of the fixed expenses that I can think of that you may have. You're not going to have all of them, but I wanted an exhaustive list so you could look through and understand which one of those you do have in your budget. If there are things where you don't know how much it's going to be, so for me, for example, I pay a hydro bill each month in addition to my rent. I can't tell you what exactly my hydro bill is going to be for next month, but I can look back at the last number of months and make a pretty good educated guess. What I tend to do is guess or estimate on the high side, so that if I think it's going to be $50 and it ends up being $43, I can then put that $7 difference back into my budget again. That is easier for me to do than guessing it's going to be $40. It ends up being $45, and then I have to pull $5 from somewhere else in my budget. So I would suggest for your fixed expenses, if they're a little bit up in the air, estimate a little bit high. So that is the first part of your budget you're going to do, because generally those fixed expenses are also things that you can't really change month to month. There's not a lot of wiggle room in there. The other category of fixed expenses that there are that you want to think about is the minimum payments on your debts. If you have credit card debts, line of credit, student loans, anything like that where there is a minimum payment on it, you need to include that minimum payment in your expenses. And it's pretty much a fixed amount. The next thing that we're going to talk about are your variable expenses. And variable expenses are just that. They vary pretty widely from month to month. And usually variable expenses are the ones where we get into trouble. So broadly, variable expenses are things like food, clothing, entertainment, the gas that you pay to put in your car every month, going out for meals, going on vacations, cash that you take out for pocket money. These are all the things that are areas you're able to cut back on if you need to have a little bit more wiggle room in your budget. Once again, I am going to put a very exhaustive list of potential variable expenses in the description bar down below. You are not going to have all the expenses that are listed down there, or at least I hope you don't have all of them. But I want you to look at everything so that you're not setting up a budget, get to the next month and realize I didn't put in any money for paying babysitters. Because then it's going to be an issue to find that money in your budget because you just didn't think about it when you were putting the budget together. It can be hard if you are very new at this to know how much to put into your budget, especially for things like food and gas where they are necessities. And if you've never really paid attention to it before, you don't really know. So this is where I would encourage you to, if you can, go back and look at your bank records for a couple of months just to get an idea of what you're looking at. So for me and the online banking that I do with my bank, both my debit card and my credit card will keep track of expenses, and I can go in and look at the last few months online. I can go in and look at, okay, how much money did I spend at gas stations last month? And how much should I spend the month before that? Because I can kind of guess that that's about how much I'm going to spend in this month coming up. What we are trying to do is create a budget where you understand what your income is and you understand what your expenses are, and you have set some limits for yourself on what your variable expenses are. It might be that you're used to spending hundreds of dollars a month in restaurants, but if you find you don't have a lot of wiggle room in your budget, you need to cut that back a little bit, and it is going to take some time to adjust to that. So you might be thinking that, okay, you're working to get some money left over in your budget, but what do you do with that money? And we're going to get to that in further lessons, because basically you're freeing up wiggle room in your budget so that you can start to pursue some of the stages and achievements that we're going to be moving along in the MoneyHoney's path. But for now, just work on getting that budget together in a way that has fewer expenses than there is income. And I want to tell you, and I'm going to talk more about this in further videos coming up, it's not going to be right. You're not going to have a perfect budget the first month out, so don't put that kind of stress and pressure on yourself. You are going to be wildly wrong next month. You are going to have to go back to that budget throughout the month and adjust things, because you're going to realize that even though you tried to plan for everything, the month doesn't work out the way you thought it would. What I will tell you is a few months down the road, maybe 3, 4, 5 months, budgeting is going to be second nature to you. You're going to have a handle on it. You're going to know how much you need to put in those categories every month, and it's going to become easy, but it's going to be wrong the first few months that you do it. I want to pause here and tell you a story about why it's important to be aware of what your expenses are. In a previous video, I told you about my experience being close to the line on managing my money, and then my husband and I got separated, and I ended up having to manage my money much more closely and pay attention to things much more closely than I had in the past. So I kind of bucked up the nerve to sit down and open up my online banking and understand what my expenses were every month, because I was starting to put together one of my first budgets. And there was something in there that I didn't recognize. And I looked and there was an expense that was coming out every month. And I didn't know what it was. And I kind of looked and I Googled some things to figure it out. This has to be a bank error. This has to be a mistake. What's going on here? And that is when I realized I was still paying for a gym membership that I had not used in over 2 years. Every month they had been taking money out of my bank account. And for over 2 years, I didn't notice because I didn't know how much I spent on anything in any particular month. So how did I know that more money was coming out than I expected? It's important to pay attention, and just by paying attention, you are going to be further ahead than you were. Budgeting is not something that is supposed to be restrictive. It is something that is supposed to help you plan in advance where you are using your resources for the coming months. Hell, you could plan to spend 50% of your money on candy and makeup. It might not be the most responsible budget in the world, but it would still be a budget. It is just an advanced plan for what you're going to do with your money. So between now and next week's lesson, which is where we're going to bring everything together into a budget, get that information together about your expenses, your fixed expenses, your variable expenses. And next week, what we are going to do is bring that all together and also talk a little bit about what the different percentages of your budget should look like, so you can know, are you on track? Are you spending too much in one area? What should it look like? And we will get to that in our next lesson. For now, if you have not subscribed, please do so. I am going to try to do these videos about once a week so that you can follow through the lessons. And if you are watching this after I have done filming, then you can watch through the playlist and I'll be adding the videos onto there. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this. I would really love the feedback. I'm hoping I will get a little bit better at this as I do more of these videos because this is still very new for me. But I am excited to share what I know about personal finance because once again, I can tell you that the feeling you have when you are in control of all of this is such a feeling of calm and peace and wellness and stability. And I want to give you that feeling because it is such a wonderful feeling in my life. That's all for this week. Please leave any questions you have for me in the comments below. I am more than happy to answer any questions at all. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye.